Hey folks, David Stewart here. It's time to talk a bit more about The Mandalorian, Chapter 8, the final episode of the first season, and I think it's a pretty good episode to wrap up the entire first season. It does everything that you need a TV episode to do, resolves the main conflict, which has to do with this saving Baby Yoda character, and it also sets up a little bit of tension for the next season, leaves a couple of loose threads, and winks at the audience and lets them know that there's going to be more to come. So in general, good execution with that. I think it's well directed by Taika Waititi, who did, of course, Thor 3. It visually has a great style to it, and I think it's very well paced for the story resolutions which have to happen in this episode. So let's dig into some of those things, especially from a writing perspective, and see how these things were executed to, I think, bring this entire season to a close. I'll definitely say I've warmed a lot more to The Mandalorian. I'm still not really a fan of TV, and I'm still not a huge fan of the show, but I definitely like it more towards the end than towards the beginning because things speed up. Things just get better as it goes. It kind of falls into its paces about episode 4 for me. Now, if you're looking at the entire structure as a 3-act structure, I think it's very easy to see that. Episodes 1 through 3 are the exposition in the first act, where you are establishing the main conflict and getting the protagonist into the actionable position where they have to actually do something to solve a problem. And the problem is the Empire wants Baby Yoda. By the end of the third episode, you have the Mandalorian actively participating in protecting Baby Yoda and making a positive moral decision to do the right thing. Episodes 4, 5, 6 would be the middle act, the chaos act, where the protagonist is kind of on his heels and trying to figure out what's going on. And then episodes 7 and 8 are the third act. Now, I was expecting actually 9 episodes. I thought there were going to be 9 episodes, which would make 3, 3, 3. But episodes 7 and 8 are pretty long episodes, so I think just those 2 episodes work really well as a third act. And this is where we're left at the beginning of episode 8. At the end of episode 7, we have Quill is dead. I think that was actually a really good writing decision, was to kill Quill. This is something that you can do in your writing, is to kill a secondary character either leading up to the third act or at the beginning of the third act. That really hammers home to the viewer or the reader that there's a lot at stake, that danger is surrounding you, that the quest can fail. It really ratchets up the tension and lets the audience know that things may not go out the way that they really want them to. You want to keep the audience uncertain about what the outcomes will be. So killing Quill was a good idea. Baby Yoda is, of course, captured, and that's where we're left, is Baby Yoda's captured, and our heroes are completely surrounded by Imperial troopers with no easy way to escape their situation. So we're entering into this resolution phase. I think this episode's called Redemption, this 8th episode, where all the things are going to tie up. Now, I will say lots of you were very correctly predicting what would be the plot solution. Often with 3-act writing, you have a B or a C story that acts as the solution for the main conflict. Either the romance somehow solves it, that's usually a B story, or you have a C story that's like the buddy story that ends up resolving the main conflict. It becomes the missing piece for the puzzle. The heroes can't figure out how to overcome the villain, but our buddy figures out the way to do it. It's kind of like Han Solo coming in and blasting Darth Vader at the end of the original Star Wars movie. There's a C story with that rogue character Han Solo, and he comes in to solve part of the plot problem at the end. And in this case, people correctly predicted it would be the droid. It would be this hunter droid that would do it. And I actually really didn't think that. I thought it was going to be this Republican shock trooper that was going to be the main solution to it. Now, she is part of the solution. It's this buddy relationship with the Mandalorian and her. She's part of the solution. She does help him. But it's the droid that really produces the big solutions and the big emotional payoffs for what's going on in this episode. And there's actually some little deeper things, I think, with this relationship with the droid that I think are worth looking at. So the droid saves Baby Yoda at the beginning of the episode, and that's what we need to happen, but at the same time, we haven't completely resolved the danger. He comes in, there's a big shootout, great action set piece with the droid and the Mandalorian and all the heroes fighting the stormtroopers, but ending up basically back in the situation where they are back in this room with no way to escape, kind of trapped, hoping to preserve this Baby Yoda. The droid provides 2 solutions. He helps them to get out, and he also heals the Mandalorian after what should be a fatal wound with a very convenient Bacta spray. Kind of, again, reminds me of video games because it's just it feels like there's a strong video game plot in this. Healing somebody with Bacta spray just kind of reminds me of like picking up a Bacta tank in Dark Forces 2 and then healing myself with it on the fly. That's what it reminded me of. But anyway, he provides a solution with that. And then, of course, that makes the Mandalorian have a different relationship with the droid. Now he trusts the droid. He likes the droid. They've actually set this up from the beginning, so I think a lot of you were very correctly seeing this. They set it up at the beginning. He doesn't like droids. He doesn't trust droids. We don't have a big reason why he doesn't, other than it was droids that like wiped out his town, which we see as a reveal in this episode. So that comes back in. And then, of course, he learns to appreciate this droid who is acting in a very noble manner. He's protecting the child. He's helping them out. He heals him. And so when the droid is going to heal him, he says, "No living being has seen me without my helmet on." This is actually a really important moment because the droid says, "I'm not alive," and then takes his helmet off, and we finally see the face of the Mandalorian, and he heals him with his Bacta spray. And that has an immediate impact later when the droid has to sacrifice himself in order for the heroes to escape. And so that sacrifice of the droid all of a sudden has a very, very big emotional impact for the protagonist. We kind of empathetically feel that through him, is that he's resolved some of his negative feelings about droids, and he really doesn't want this droid to die. He says, "We need you. You can't just destroy yourself." And then the droid repeats, or he says, "You can't kill yourself," or something like that. And the droid says, I'm not alive. I was never alive. And then proceeds to go out and self-destruct. And so there's this dissonance there between a droid that is never alive, yet nevertheless is acting in a logical and in a moral manner, really, with the idea that it's entirely material and he's entirely unliving in a sense. He's a materialist creation and doesn't really have thoughts or emotions of his own. He's not a metaphysical being the way that sentient or sapient beings in the Star Wars universe and in our universe indeed are. So there's this weird dissonance, like we treat the droids as if they're alive, but this droid is very upfront that droids are not alive. They are not living sapient beings. So that's a really, it was a really good couple of moments there, I think. Very, very much surprised me to come out of just a Star Wars TV show that they would actually talk about some, or just really indirectly talk about some important themes that have existed in science fiction all the way for the last 100 years. This idea that what makes a person a person. Is a person a completely material being? Well, we have a droid who's a completely material being. And his death has an impact even on those that should really know that he is merely material and has no spiritual element to him. So that's a really good moment, and that actually is the final resolution for what's going on. And of course, in really good fashion, you have one little tag at the end, just when you think you're safe. Out comes the bad guy with a TIE fighter to blow you up. And the Mandalorian, who is leveled up, by the way, there's a scene I just didn't mention where he runs back into the boss of the Mandalorians, and all the other Mandalorians are dead somehow. And we don't really have that explanation. I kind of wish they would have explained that. But they're all dead except for the leader, and she stays behind. But she gives him a jetpack. So he's leveled up, and he gets an insignia and a jetpack. He gets some new gear, and he uses that gear immediately to defeat the bad guy. This is something that they did before with the little missiles in, I think, episode 3. So we get that repeated again. I'm reminded of like a video game kind of plot with that. So he manages to use his jetpack to defeat the TIE fighter and to free all the heroes. We have a setup for season 2. I have to go find where Baby Yoda belongs, like where's his species and what to do with him. He's my responsibility now. So it kind of sets up that lone wolf and cub as the format going forward, at least for the next season. And at the same time, we have a little teaser at the end. The bad guy, of course, doesn't die. And this is important. They see the TIE fighter kind of crash over in the distance, but they don't really see it blow up. We don't see it like a big flame. And so he gets out with like a lightsaber of darkness, or I don't know, like a vibra blade. I remember those from like KOTOR. So he like cuts his way out with a darkness saber. And the darkness saber, I think, has something, I think there's some darkness sabers and like dark sabers in some extended universe stuff. So it might be like a little bit of a fan thing. And it also reveals that the bad guy maybe has more to him than we thought. He's not merely some ex-Imperial like honcho. We also have some reveals with him being like a former war criminal, and so you have this idea that maybe there's more to him. So when we continue the series forward, maybe we'll learn more about who this really dark saber wielding ultra bad guy is. Is he like a dark Jedi or a Sith or something? What is he? So we'll find out in the future. So very good little TV tropes doing that, having that little tag. You do the same thing in a novel. You maybe leave a couple of loose ends for people to want to have resolved when they pick up the next book in the series. So that's Mandalorian. Season, the final episode of the season, chapter 8. Overall, I think it's pretty well executed. The visuals all looked really tight. There is one thing that I will kind of nitpick on, which is at the beginning, again, they have these jokes about stormtroopers not being able to shoot anything. They had this pair of stormtroopers having a more regular guy conversation, which actually I kind of liked, because we rarely get to see stormtroopers acting like human beings underneath the mask. And then they are both trying to shoot like a can on the ground on some metal object, be like trying to shoot. Let's shoot a soda can over there with our pistols, and like they can't shoot it. And so again, there's always this referential element to the show where we're always referring to Star Wars itself, and sometimes in a joking manner. And I think that that's a little bit out of place. I don't think that parodies belong in like the main line. But of course, Taika Waititi actually did this with Thor 3, so it's not really out of place for the director to have elements like that featured prominently in the show. But in general, I think this was probably one of the best paced episodes of it so far. It really felt very, very well timed throughout. That's another thing I'll say. So thanks so much for watching this little analysis. I'll probably do one of the entire show, but you have an idea of how the whole thing is working now that we've gone through all 8 episodes, and how that 3-act structure can work and be extended out to something that's a little bit longer. Now, I think personally, I would have rather had less material and have it be more condensed into a movie with this story, but it works as a TV series, and I think fans really, really like it. And it's easy to see why. It's got those aesthetics that people like, and it's got some likable characters involved with it as well. And what else do you really need to have a Star Wars story that fans enjoy? So I think there's good reason to think that fans enjoy this. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Newest books. The Christmas special is no longer available because it's not Christmas time anymore. Eyes in the Walls, that's the newest one. This is my newest horror book. This one came out last month, so if you're into horror, you'll like this one. Sci-fi horror, a lot of your sci-fi fans. This one's very popular right now. So Voices of the Void, I will be writing a sequel to this year, hopefully. And finally, City of Silver, my newest fantasy book, sequel coming hopefully soon. We'll see how quick I can get things out. So thanks so much. Make sure you're on my mailing list, dvspress.com/list, and make sure you're checking my blog. I do post a lot of content there, and I'm going to be posting a lot more content for 2020 on the DVS Press blog. So thanks so much, and I'll see you guys next time.